County Board of Supervisors to order. This evening we have Father Rambo from the St. John's Episcopal Church to offer invocation. If you would please rise and remain standing for the pledge. Father Rambo.
Good evening. I hope you all managed to get outside and enjoy this day. It was one of God's particular gifts, as are the people here in Wythe County, and I thought we'd start with a prayer for them and for you. Grant, O God, that your holy and life-giving Spirit may so move every human heart, and especially the people of this county, that barriers which divide us may crumble, suspicions disappear, and hatred cease. That our divisions being healed, we may live with justice and peace. Heavenly Father, send down upon this commission and all who hold office in this county the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices and promote the well-being of all people. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is always citizens' time. We have everybody signed up.
No, sir. Nobody signed
Do what? Okay. Having nobody signed up for citizens' time, I'll close citizens' time. Moving on to the agenda, we have a public hearing, fiscal year 21 budget amendment, the CARES Act funding. I'll try to read the public hearing notice, if I can get it in large to you. Notice is hereby given pursuant to section 15.2-2507 of the Code of Virginia and amendments thereto, that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors intends to consider an amendment to increase the fiscal year 21 budget in the amount of $2,502,568 for funds received from the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. A public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, October 13th, 2020 at 6:05 p.m. or as soon as practical thereafter in the boardroom of the County Administration Building, 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia, 24382, to hear public comment on the proposed budget amendment by order of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors, Stephen Bear, County Administrator. Didn't have anybody signed up to speak. Mr. Bear, you want to summarize that?
Yes, basically, we have received the additional $2,502,568 in CARES Act funding. An amendment and appropriation of more than 1% of the budget by code requires that a public hearing be held. So therefore, this is a public hearing to amend and appropriate these funds into the budget.
Does anybody have any questions or discussion for Mr. Bear? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do we need to take action now to?
I've got under new business to
Okay.
amend and appropriate. Sure, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. Can y'all be sure your microphone's on?
Yeah, mine's got.
I'll call you out.
Moving on to public hearing for Mills Tax Ordinance 2000-02, Amendment Number 1. In compliance with the Code of Virginia and amendments thereto, the Wythe County Board of Supervisors will conduct a public hearing to consider Amendment Number 1 to Ordinance 2000-02, Mills Tax Ordinance of Wythe County, Virginia. The Board of Supervisors will hear comments from citizens concerning the proposed amendment. The public hearing will be held Tuesday, October 13th, 2020 at 6 p.m. in the boardroom of the Wythe County Office Building, 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia. A copy of the proposed amendment is on file in the county administrator's office located at 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia, for public review or online at www.wytheville.org. By order of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors and the Bear County Administrator. With no one signed up to speak on the public hearing, Mr. Bear, will you summarize?
Yes, the Code of Virginia was amended this year to allow counties the ability to increase their meals tax, which have been set at a maximum rate of 4%. As of July 1st, counties have the ability to increase their meals tax rate to 6%, which is a 33.3% increase in the rate. What this proposed amendment does amends our ordinance from 2000 to increase the meals rate to 6%. That is the language added in 5.1, and in compliance with what was requested at the previous board meeting where we had the public hearing on this. The added a section as requested that the Board of Supervisors shall commit 1/3 of the total receipts from the tax on food and beverages to the emergency services and/or water department budgets.
And from my understanding from Mr. Farthing's email, I know Mr. Martin's here, and he can speak on that. We're not allowed to earmark that money, correct?
That is correct.
Does that elicit any questions or discussion from the board?
What's the reason that we can't hear?
So, as you probably know by now, Virginia is a Dillon's rule state. And that means we as a county can only do what is specifically authorized by the General Assembly. And there is no specific provision allowing you to earmark proceeds from a tax binding future boards of supervisors as such. There is a statute for service districts so that you can set up districts like zones and tax those zones for capital improvements and such in those zones. That exists. But there is no authorization for a county to earmark funds in this way. Now, what you can do is when appropriation time comes around, you can say, hey, we got so much money from that tax increase, therefore I now think that should go towards fire or water. But what you cannot do is bind future boards of supervisors with an ordinance.
But this has been done in the past, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
I thought money was earmarked for other stuff in the past.
Not by ordinance. Mr. Horny brought up at the last meeting, or the meeting when we discussed this, he brought up years ago, there was discussion about there was 2 cents in real estate tax that was indicated was increasing. This is sometime in the 90s, if I remember correctly. It was prior to my time on working with the county. That was indicated that it was that was what the funds were, but it was not an ordinance change. It was just the Board of Supervisors said that year that increasing the tax rate, that they were using that increase for those purposes. And I guess it's similar to a few years ago when we did a tax increase. The purpose of that tax increase was to pay for debt service for the renovation of George Wythe High School and for the school resource officers. But it was not actually an amendment to the ordinance or to anything that says on taxes. It was just what the board's I guess, policy or how they were allocating the money that year.
On the lodging tax, is that in the code that so much of it
Yes.
has to go toward tourism?
It is. The code, the 2% is undesignated. Anything over the 2% has to be put towards a tourism-related activity, up to the 5% maximum. So it is authorized by code on that.
So the state can earmark our money, but we can't.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
So-
Unfortunately, that's correct.
So
Parallel to
we-
Dillon's rule state.
I'm sorry, so we can't earmark it, but we can commit That wording can be in there,
Not in the ordinance.
not in the actual ordinance,
No.
okay. That's just for informational
Now, I know
purposes, I
that
guess.
some municipalities have passed resolutions that are non-binding and say, we plan on doing this, but it does not bind any future, doesn't bind yourself really, but it doesn't, except for the, it's your word, but it doesn't bind future boards of supervisors to abide by it.
When I got their email this afternoon, I put together this draft policy. I have not run it through council yet. I'm just handing it out for you all to look at. But to see if there's a policy or a resolution as a way to handle this, to just indicate that the board is indicating by increasing the tax, they are wanting to commit 33% of it to the emergency services or water department.
Okay,
but-
but we could say more than 33% if we wanted to?
You
Or
can
do
set- I
we-
mean, you all-
we can
you all
spend the
set-
money on what we want to spend it on
Yeah,
at the time,
the
but,
33% is what the amount of the increase is.
okay.
So currently, we're budgeted to bring in about $800,000 a year. We are anticipating that we'll bring in $1.2 million a year with this increase, leaving the COVID factor out of it, just in a general year. So we'd be bringing in an additional $400,000. So that's 1/3, 33% of the funds. So what was talked about was with that additional funding coming in, that 33% of the total meals tax would be earmarked towards fire, rescue, or water in the
Okay.
process. So,
Just wanna make sure I
for example, the water committee will be looking next week at some projects that they've been talking about, some rough estimates for Barrett Mill and for Olive Branch and Dunford Road that, and I will use round numbers here, but I'll say the debt service on them is $120,000. The estimated revenue coming in is $20,000 or $30,000, so it's going to take $90,000 a year in a commitment to do those projects. So that could be, you could say in the budget next year, okay, we're going to take $90,000, $100,000, whatever it is, and put from the meals tax towards this water project. Or if it's towards a rescue squad, if it's towards the fire department, just, anything like that in the process.
But we'll have to let him review, or Mr. Farthing review.
Yeah.
to
This
where
is
we
just
don't
a
actually
draft
put the-
policy, and that way you all could establish a policy of how you all
Okay.
intend to do it. But the next board can change that or whatever in the process.
Okay.
And a resolution may be better than a policy.
Yeah, a resolution probably would be better, just in terms of its formality and what it means to you. But it's not, you just have to realize it's not binding. The next board could completely ignore it.
But they would have to do it publicly.
Right, I mean, people would know the resolution existed, that you guys wanted it a certain way, this collection of supervisors, and the next collection, if they ignore it, at least you guys are on the record for how you wanted it to be spent.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
And that increase would be fairly simple to track.
The way I put it was just basically, since this is a 33% increase, you would just be taking 1/3 of the money. So yes, it would be. You'd just be calculated in that manner.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I guess, Mr. Chairman, if the interest is adopting this ordinance, which I would encourage adopting because this, as I've mentioned before, while tax increases are never favorable, obviously tourism-related tax increases have been able to collect additional funds from those traveling on the interstates. And keep in mind, as you all know, and I'm saying this for the public as well, this does not affect any of the restaurants within the town limits of Wytheville or the town limits of Rural Retreat. So this is only affecting restaurants at exit 77, exit 80, exit 84, exit 24 in the process, and others, that are throughout the county, not in there. But obviously, a majority of our meals tax revenue comes from the traveling public visiting our McDonald's and our Denny's and our Burger Kings and our Wendy's at our exits. If you are interested, I would recommend setting, obviously striking the language that I put in that the attorneys have told me is illegal. But I would set a date to be effective on January 1st to give the Commissioner of Revenue time to send out notifications to all the restaurants and everything for the new paperwork to start the sales tax effective then.
And just to comment on something you said, it doesn't affect the restaurants in town, Louisville, the restaurants are.
Correct.
And their current tax rate is
7%.
So if we adopt this tonight, how long will it be before the resolution's ready to go?
We can prepare it and have it for your discussion at the next meeting. Obviously, you're not going to start collecting any money on this until February of next year in the process. And then you all can determine how you want to put in additional funds that come in this year. I mean, we budgeted in anticipation of some additional funds there, but we could, we put them in, no, we did not budget additional funds there. We've got the 400,000 in the budget, 800,000 in the budget right now. I'd have to go back and look at that. I think we did a budget an estimated increase in those funds.
I don't think it was based on this.
We may have just left the 800,000 as it was.
I think that's what we've done.
And then you all could determine, obviously this year we would expect to get a little less than 200,000 if everything stays the same in additional tax by the end of June.
Does anybody else have anything?
I'll just say, I said it last time, I don't like it, but I realize we have a county to run, so I guess we need to do what we need to do. That's just my opinion.
Hearing nothing else, I'll close the public hearing and I'll board for any motion.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second to approve effective January 1, 2021. Any further questions or discussion? Here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
No.
Aye.
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 So approved. Moving on to the agenda, the next item is payment of invoices.
Make a motion with the,
Have a motion to pay the invoices, have a second.
Second.
Any invoice, any board member wants to pull out and discuss? Here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Aye.
yeah,
Aye.
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 So approved. Next, we have the minutes of the previous meeting, September 22nd, 2020. Entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second. Second. Any corrections, questions, or discussion? Here none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 yeah.
Aye.
So approved. Moving on to staff reports. Mr. Dunford.
Yes, sir.
Arlen Dunford, sorry.
Good afternoon.
It should have been more. When you say Dunford, look at it, you're going to get a response. I apologize for not being more specific.
Good afternoon, Board. I'm going to go down through the list. This is a quarterly report for the last 3 months. We started out the shelter with 10. At the beginning of the quarter, we picked up 33. 15 was brought in by the public. The two highlights would be the town with 24 turned in. Blaine County had 24. We didn't put anything down. We boarded 49 back to the owners. Transferred to other facilities. Our rescue groups took 46. Then we ended up with 8 at the end of the quarter. Right now, in the shelter, I've got three bite cases, and state law requires us to hold those 10 days. And I've already had 5 court cases. 2 of them has been in there for 10 months, and the other 3's been in there for a while, so I have to keep those in there also. So that's 8 right now pens that's tied up. And I may have another actual bite case come in under a dangerous dog also, as soon as I can get him served. I've got 1 adoptable when the time's up on it, rescue or adopt, whichever comes first. And And the thing I wanted to bring up was the capital improvements plan, I think comes up on a shelter for 2024. And I think we might need to talk about that earlier, if all possible. See, maybe if Blaine County and Wythe can step in and help out, or as far as shelter-wise goes, or what we need to do on that. And then the last thing I had was cats. I'm getting several calls a week. I think over the weekend, Danny said he had 4 people with a lot of cats. I had one the other day, he had 30. Just, we don't have nowhere to go with them. Free roaming companion animal, and that's basically all I can tell them out in the county. But other than that, I don't have anything else unless you got any questions.
Marlon, it seems like the bike cases have been crazy.
They have,
Is there-
yeah. They had a bad one here in town with Sunday night, Monday, and we got it at the shelter also. Those cases like that, I can't place them, you can't put the problem somewhere else, so I just have to hold them for the 10 days, and that's what ties my pins up there. And then with the court case dogs, sometimes it's 30 days unless you get somebody continues, or, something comes up, or we can't have it on that date, then it gets continued another 30 days, which the 2 I got in there, it's been in there for 10 months, they got appealed to circuit court, and that's not till November the 18th, so they're gonna be over 11 months and a half.
Well, I would ask if there's any way we could try to speed those up, but with the courts operating the way they are, I don't know.
Yeah, I think when COVID too, it put me behind. I had several cases, then it all got continued down, and I had to have some cases heard in February, but wasn't heard till August, so.
And I will tell you, and I've told Mr. Bear this, I've gotten several compliments on, Sharon?
Sharon Dolly.
I always want to call her Shannon. Sharon, just the way she handles stuff.
Right.
Follows up with people, they're real impressed with her, so pass that on.
And she started the basic animal control yesterday, so she'll be in for about 3 weeks.
Does anybody else have anything for Arlen?
I just, Arlen's been talking to me about it, and I told him, I said, I agree with you, didn't you, go ahead and mention it. Larger shelter is going to come up as a necessity before long. We've talked about it, we've discussed it, and we got to figure out whether we can, it's tight where we are, what you can continue to add on, whether you go to something new, but it is we've had it in the capital improvements plan, but it's one of those that maybe one we got to look at sooner than later on updating. So,
What's the arrangement with the town on the dog shelter?
We use their sewer and water, and then they use the shelter. I think that's how that works. And then Blaine County, they got a contract with us, and that's been, I guess, before I started here.
and they do not sell dog tags separately.
Right.
All dog tags are sold through the county, so we get all revenue from dog tags. So
From Blaine?
from towns, from any dog tag sold goes to any county residents, whether they're in the town of Wytheville or out in the county as it is. So the town does have their own animal control officers to enforce their laws, but, and they have their own cat shelter, but the dog shelter, it's pretty much ours to run, and they just bring the dogs to us in the process.
And I've told you this before, and I'll say it again, y'all do a good job with what you got down there. That place is spotless.
Thank you.
Yes.
I mean, those dogs live a lot cleaner life than they do in some of these houses.
Right.
Especially my dog. Does anybody else have anything for Arlen?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll look at it.
Thanks.
We'll get Mr. Kent down there to.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Todd Catherine at IT. I told you we were putting you last 2 or 3 people. Johnny,
Good evening, everybody. First thing on the list I've got for you is the Toshiba phone system update. We've made a lot of progress. If you've been in the sheriff's office or any of the courtrooms or the old courthouse, you've seen the new phones out on the desk along with the old phones. We've got the phones, the controllers, the switches are all out. The programming is mostly done. We're shooting for a cutover to use the new system Monday evening next week, the 19th. The way that'll work is we'll turn on the system, and then Tuesday we'll be back in full force to troubleshoot any issues, tweak things that need to be tweaked, and get it operating the way folks want it. We do have an exit strategy just in case it goes horribly wrong and doesn't work the way anybody wants it to do. We can pull back and fire up the Toshibas and it's business as usual, but we're hoping we don't have to do that. CARES Act equipment, new computing equipment is being configured and deployed as quickly as we can get it out. So far we've delivered 35 new units and have approximately 90 more to go. It's not a fast process, but it is happening. We're still waiting on some back-ordered items to go with some of this new equipment to get it out the door, but we're getting through it as soon as we can. Along those lines, something that may help, this is an IT staffing update. We've hired a full-time IT support specialist. He'll be starting with us this Friday. So I'm really excited about that, to get him on board and get things moving. As always, there's daily activity, people calling, having issues and whatnot, and we continue to work on those. So try to keep business moving forward. That's all I have. Any questions?
Does anybody have anything for Mr. Cadger?
I don't think so.
I just want to say thank you and blessings, and I told Stephen this other week, I don't ever see you two, you don't have a pretty project. And I know it was a struggle, just the two of you, so maybe the new person will help out. Thank you for what you're doing.
We appreciate that.
Bring us up to at least 95 standards.
We're going to be 2021 in a year.
And I appreciate their work, because with this phone system, there's a lot of it that has to happen after hours when nobody was here, when you can test PRIs and stuff like that. So I was here with the committee till I don't know what time we finished the other night, 7:30, 8 o'clock or whatever, when we wrapped up. And when I walked up front, Mr. Catchern was still here working on the phone system and the IT. I appreciate all the time they've put into it. And we hopefully can get it up and running next week and get the rest of these computers set up and going. Thank you, Todd.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
Mr. Cancer?
That's as far as I can wear that mask. I'll go through it really quickly. Progress Park, we did a slope drain over there, rebuilt it basically. Went back over there and sowed some grass seed, spread some fertilizer to try to get it seeded over or grassed over. Apex Center, we're setting up a meeting this Thursday for RGM to try to do some closeout. There's still a few items that has not been addressed. Locks and filter boxes for the heaters. Apex Barn, topsoil was spread, taken from the barn area and spread down along the road to help some of the areas that are poor to grow grass. We seeded, fertilized, and limed that last Friday. We also did some matting on the bio basin to try to get some grass growing on it too. Bids due, bathrooms were put out for bid. Bids due the 30th of October. The bathroom project is much simpler than initial design, but building costs have gone through the roof. I don't know if you guys have been to Lowe's lately, but it kind of surprised me. I went and bought a capacitor bank for my dad's well, and normally it's $27 and it was $84. And 2x4s used to be $2.50, $3, now they're $6 and $7. So I don't know how these bids will come in, but it's a much simpler project than initial. Ricky Road, we're really close to completing this project. Of course, the project doubled in size, at length anyway. It didn't double with picking up people, but we extended on out as many people as we can. Went from basically a quarter mile to a half mile, so because we had extra money in the budget. But we have some change orders because of building materials, but we're still in the contingency money right now. The transfer station, JPSA, the contractor, we found that he didn't install galvanized nuts and bolts as per the specs, so he came back in. He put in galvanized nuts, galvanized bolts, and added lock nuts at our request, but the bolts look like they're case hardened steel. They're kind of blue looking, so we've asked the question of what kind of material this is. We don't want to get into some kind of dissimilar metal thing where they would corrode each other, so I'm still waiting on that answer. Erosion sediment control plans, exterior out in Rural Retreat, their grading project's expanded a little bit. We're sent Kyle out there. He's going to do a GPS location to try to get the area. We hope they don't go over the acre, because then they got to redo their plans. So last time we did a GPS, they were at a half acre. So we should be good, but we got to check them. We've reviewed the plans for Musser. We sent them a comment letter. They should have the comments addressed this week, and if everything's okay, we can issue them a permit. I think they've had all their bonds and everything paid. Caden Energix, plans have been submitted to us. We've reviewed them, trying to put together a comment letter for them. Let's see. We staked the tank site at Lots Gap for possible water tanks, and Salem Stone didn't like the site. It's on one side of the ridge, so we're going to restake it on the other side of the ridge and see if they can review it and see if it's okay with them. We're trying to do a little land swap with them, I'm assuming. And Stephen didn't think I was busy enough, so he said that I'm going to be an emergency services guy for a little while. So maybe, if I can understand all of what I need to do. But that's all I have. Y'all have any questions?
Can you pull a trailer?
Huh?
Can you pull a trailer?
Yeah, I can't back one, but I can pull it.
Front goes, back's got to follow it. My sister says.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Kinster?
I have a question, comment, whatever. I was at the Apex Center last night for a meeting. In the meeting room on the, I think it's the northeast side, right there beside the Pigalicious. Do we have a water leak or something in the ceiling?
I've been made aware of that. There's some issues that the filters have not been changed. I thought they had remedied that because it was affecting some of the condensate pans emptying out, but I'll double check that.
Well, and we don't do the maintenance up there, Billy's guys don't do the maintenance up there, so it's back really on Tom and them. So they've not mentioned anything, so I don't know what it is on that.
Somebody just happened to be sitting beside me, and he looked up and he said it looked like water in the light fixture. And I mean, it did look like there was some kind of liquid up there. So I just didn't know if it was something that.
Not been made of every week. They did have some situations with some condensation drains off the air conditioning units some time back, so we'll pass that on to Tom and have him take a look at it.
All right, thank you.
We got the rain gauge at the Apex this morning said 2 inches of rain, but my rain gauge in Cripple Creek, I think I got over 3 inches. So I don't know if the rain gauge down there, I'm assuming they got the same amount of rain. So hopefully it's not a roof leak.
If they're over 20 feet apart, that, you know, it can vary.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Johnny, on that, what Arlo was talking about, and talking about what Mr. Barrett didn't think you had nothing to do, is that something you and Billy can get together and just kind of look at maybe what footprint of land we've got down there, and maybe what kind of additions?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
And I don't know, and Mr. Bear, I don't know what Harlan is looking at as far as size, what you just said about building materials is definitely not the time to do it, but, I think we've all known that was coming for a while, we keep that can down the road, and, I think we're about to cul-de-sac. Just sometimes y'all get together.
That, one thing I did forget, Lead Mines Rescue Squad, we were asking ECS to do some soils analysis down there for additional septic, so we can expand down there a little bit. They turned it down, so we contacted Stephen Dalton. He's going to do the soils analysis, and then we can design a septic system there, so they can expand and put in washer and dryer or whatever they need down there. So,
What's the turnaround time looking like on that?
I'm assuming we'll get the soils next week. The reason the web soil survey is no good is because it's been cut down, so we need a soil scientist out there to look at the soils. By adding, I've already talked to the health department, by adding 3 100-foot lines and using the domes instead of 57 stone, we should be okay to get a permit from, I think it has to go to Richmond, but I would say within 30 days, wouldn't you, Stephen?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can go ahead and have everything ready for somebody to bid it out.
Does anybody else have anything for Mr. Cantor? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to agendas. Next item is old business. Mr. Bear, do we have anything under old business?
I do not have any items, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on to new business. First item is Sheriff's Office asset forfeiture transfer. Mr. Bear.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and for those on the Budget Committee, I think this came in actually the day of our Budget Committee meeting, so that's the reason why it wasn't on your agenda, but I didn't want the sheriff to have to wait any longer on it, so went ahead and put it on the board package and request the transfer of the $20,275.20 from the electronic summons funds to the PAF and to amend and appropriate the same.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
I'll abstain.
Abstain.
Aye.
So approved. Moving on to vacation of portion of plat.
You all are familiar, we just recently did a section of a vacation of a right-of-way. What you have here is a request that's come into the Planning Commission from Mr. Porter. If you look at page 84. Mr. Porter owns basically all of the northern lots up there and is proposing to vacate those. There is a right-of-way that's in there as well. It's lots 1 through 16. It's not easy to see those numbers, but basically it's you'll see from the top you'll see about 6 lots up there, and you'll see a right-of-way coming down and doglegging over and having a cul-de-sac on the end. It's the lots above that right-of-way and the lots below that right-of-way that he owns all of that, and is requesting. I shared it with the county attorney. Agreed that since the best way to do this would be by ordinance as we have done before. So my recommendation is for the board to set a public hearing no sooner than the November 12th meeting, and ask staff and county attorney to prepare necessary right-of-way vacation. Page 90 shows the lots clear of the vacation.
Do we need to take an action to set the public hearing?
I would request it, Mr. Chairman.
Entertain a motion to set the public hearing November
13th.
13th,
I'm sorry, November 12th.
November 12th, 2020.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved. Next is Electoral Board Center for Tech and Civic Life Grant.
Recommend, Mr. Chairman, that you all amend and appropriate the funds that Mr. Counts has received from this grant and amend and appropriate them to $1301,433,202. It's an amount of $8,000.
And what's that for?
It can be used, it's basically, and to use a simple term, I will call it supplemental pay for all of the people working the poll booths this year because of the COVID situation.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to amend and appropriate $8,000 to $43,3202. So moved. Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Here none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 Yeah.
Aye.
So approved. Moving on to CARES Act, amend and appropriate. That's the public hearing that we had earlier in the evening. I'll open the floor up for a motion to amend and appropriate $2,502,568 of the CARES Act relief funds.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second. Second. Any questions or discussion? Here now, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved. Moving on to CARES Act request.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the first one's a relatively small amount, Treasurer's Office, $494. This is where she's purchased some of the retractable belt stanchion barriers and directional signs to guide people coming in and keep the customers separated as much as possible.
Do we need to take action to approve this?
I would recommend action to approve it. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Entertain a motion to approve the request from the treasurer. Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? I will say Lori did contact me after the last meeting. I said I hope they try as much as possible to do business locally. And she said she tried to do it on these things and they were twice the price. So I thought it was just a suggestion if she could find it at the same deal. So anybody else have anything? Do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved.
$187 for protective covers for the credit card machines and pen pads, et cetera. Request approval of that.
Entertain a motion. So moved. Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Next one, Mr. Chairman, is from the library for $678. It's for some of their bags and bins for facilitating moving the books and things between the library, in-house, and outreach.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second. Second. Any questions or discussion? Here none, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 The next two are sort of together. This is from Don Chris. This is the SCADA system, Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition System, and this is basically the system that allows the facilities to talk to each other, and it tells you what your tanks are at this location, what your pumps are doing at this location. It saves time for people going out to these locations, and it allows the operators, the proposal here is for an upgrade of that system to increase capabilities and to also to allow additional operators to have access to that, to be able to see it and manage it and monitor it, whether they're there or out in the field or where their situation is. That's the $50,658, and then the $3,000 is for the necessary, that's an estimate for the engineering assistance that will be needed to tie the systems together and put the upgrade in. So I would request an approval of both of those in the amount of $53,658.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Do a roll call vote, Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved.
And the last one, I know it's a little dim on your copy there, I hope everyone can see it, but basically the last one is from the Commissioner of Revenue, estimating $1,500 for 3 scanners. Mr. Vault jokingly said bringing things up to 1995. Their office has always been a very heavily intensive paper office, and I will give Ms. Vault credit. She is trying her best to look at ways of bringing more things in, scanning things, giving them the ability to do things from home, because right now pretty much everything is on paper records in their office. So she would, I don't know that this is the only request that's going to come out of this, but I would request approval of this $1,500 to have them get the scanners and be able to start doing scanning. We may have to look at whether it just goes into our network scanners or whether we need to work on a system to put that in. But I do recommend proceeding with these scanners and encouraging her office to try to move as much to digital as we can.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second. Second. Any questions or discussion? Here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 Anything else under CARES Act request, Mr. Barrett?
Nothing for action, Mr. Chairman. I will just mention our auditors are in this week just doing our general audit work. But I did take the opportunity today to meet with our lead auditor and just talk a little bit about the CARES Act, about some of the limitations and requirements and expenditures that are out there, some of the activities that I'm seeing from other localities that may or may not be within the guidelines of the CARES Act. But the most recently, within the last couple of weeks, there's been some clarification on hazard pay for public health and public safety officers. So I will be working with the sheriff to finalize his request on that with some of the revised changes. What's the word I'm looking for? Less cumbersome and less paperwork involved with trying to provide the justification and the backup and the numbers for what each individual does in public health or public safety in order to justify the CARES Act expenditures. So with that information, we should be able to go ahead and implement some additional hazard pay for those in those positions.
And there was one question I had, and I can't remember who brought it up, but there was a discussion about the vehicles for the fire departments.
Yes.
Where are we at with that?
Had some discussion with him about that. We are trying to look at, and as long as the reason and the rationale is very clearly stated and justified for the purposes, that falls within it. They still are the same on fire trucks and things like that, absolutely not falling within it. We have got a little spec sheet. I actually looked at it again today to check with our local vendors and see if they can meet a delivery time frame to bring them in here with, I don't care if it's a white, red, or black truck, 3/4 ton truck to meet the needs. But I did review that with him today in the process.
And that's what I was gonna say, with the timeline and the way vehicles are, 'cause
That's the concern, yeah.
anybody else have anything about the CARES Act?
No, that was me on the truck.
I know, I was,
Yeah.
and I guess my suggestion was that we need to reach out to departments. The big thing is whether they want a long bed or a short bed, because depending on what additional usage they're looking at. Anybody else have anything? Moving on to board reports, budget committee.
The Budget Committee met on October the 6th, 2020, and makes the following recommendations. Transferring $3,725 from the state asset forfeiture account and to amend and appropriate the same to account 31021-461260, police supplies, in order to purchase ammunition, or procure ammunition, I'm sorry.
If they can find it. Committee doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion? Here now, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
Second item is to amend and appropriating $7,184 to account 12091-470012 for the Virginia Geographic Information Network base mapping program calls for the update digital.
Orthophotography.
That word.
Can we put big words?
I'm sorry, I'll put pictures next time.
Yes, we need pictures.
Cover committee doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion? And Mr. Barrett, I know is this not something that we can put under CARES Act, since it actually keeps people from coming in and looking at it?
It's actually a very good question. The only problem is we actually committed to this back 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Excellent idea.
I'd rather spend the federal government's money before we spend ours.
That's
Do a roll call vote, Mr. Terry.
Aye.
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 So approved.
No further items from the Budget Committee.
All right, Economic Development Committee.
The Economic Development Committee met on October 6, 2020, and recommends the following action. Approve the addition of the properties on the attached list to the Wythe County Enterprise Zones. Properties are highlighted in red on the attached map.
Mr. Barrett, you want to?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. The enterprise zone, as you're aware, is areas set up throughout the county and within the towns that we establish as enterprise zones, where we are specifically marketing, trying to bring in additional business and industries to the area. We have a base map and on your attachments. Basically, the areas shown in yellow are the areas that are currently within the enterprise zone. In summary, we've got them. Industrial park is obviously the main one in the enterprise zone. We have them along our exits, I guess at the last rendition, we actually updated and added some on the downtown Wytheville as part of their downtown revitalization, included that with it. What you have before you is a list of properties that the JIDA has been working with these owners and discussing with them to add them into the enterprise zone. So these 7 properties add 44.9 acres to our enterprise zone, leaving us with 346 acres remaining. So you see them listed on page 123, and then the maps show them highlighted in red being added.
Any questions or discussion? Come from committee doesn't need a second. Do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Committee also reviewed the engineered plans for Exit 77 development area and recommended postponing further action at this time.
Any questions or discussion? Do we need to take any action on that, Mr. Barry?
I would, Mr. Chairman, just take action just to basically just say postpone any action this time. Hurt and Profit has finished the set of plans. I just copied a few pages of the general layout for you, not the entire set of plans. But at this point in time, we take action to put it on the shelf and decide if this is a project that we want to do, and, coming up.
Entertain a motion to approve the committee's recommendation.
Actually, you have a recommendation from committee,
Oh,
Mr. Chairman.
yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't need a second. So any questions or discussion? Do a roll call vote, Mr. Terry.
Aye.
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 Anything else from the Economic Development Committee?
No, sir.
Board of Supervisors time, Mr. Smith.
So Crimson Lane, I meant to send an email to Mr. Breyer and I forgot, but it's in pretty rough shape. I want to see when it's on the pavement schedule. I don't think it was for this year, but it's pretty rough down there. And then the last thing I got, I just want to, I sent Andy an email, Mr. Fowler, and thank him for the work he did on Huddle Road at the corner, or the intersection of Huddle and Poke Road with this line there. We went by this weekend, it's 100% battery. So hopefully it'll keep from having as many accidents right there, because that was a pretty deep ditch there. So.
They've got an excavator down there, so they must be gonna do some more.
Yeah. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Did you say you sent something to Andy, or do you want me to send something to Andy? Or?
No, I seen him one.
Okay.
Mr. Cook,
I have nothing.
Ms. Lawson.
I've had multiple complaints about regarding the noise ordinance or noise complaints. Stephen's working on it for me. You can just, I assume you're still working on it and give me an update
Yeah,
later.
unfortunately, there's not really anything with our ordinance that we can really do to address that situation.
That's what I
looked
was
at it, I
wondering.
reviewed it, unless we make some type of change to it.
Is this one out of the code?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Lawson?
That's all, thank you.
Mr. McRoberts?
The only thing I had was I had complaints again on the speed limit lower end of Avenue.
In the 35 zone?
75,
Anything else, sir?
that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Horning?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Terry?
Nothing to this time, Mr. Chairman.
I had some road concerns and VDOT got on pretty quick. Actually, the gentleman called me back bragging on VDOT, so I made sure that the email that to Mr. Fowler, so whether they will hear that or not. That's all I've got. Next on the agenda, closed meeting. I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. We're at
I'll make that motion.
Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A1, discussion of personnel matters, emergency management coordinator, performance reviews, and Section 2.2-3711A5, prospective industry for projects panel, Honeybee, KP 2020, repeat, and others.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion, have a second. Do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Now, closed session.
Okay, he's ready.
Entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now, in open session, Mr. McRoberts, if you'll read the certification, please, sir.
Thank you, sir. I've been waiting a long time for this. Resolution, certification of closed meeting, whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.23712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors. And I'll make a motion we accept that.
Have a motion to ratify the certification, have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, do a roll call vote, Mr. Smith.
Aye.
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 Before we adjourn, I sent y'all an email from Adam Kidd, the Baco
Region 12, yes.
representative. If nobody has an objection, I'll email him back and tell him he has our full support to continue as our region representative.
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Who is doing Curtis' job now?
The, currently, Mr. Tinser and myself would be the backup calls for anything that are going on. If we got a hazmat call that is out there, we would grab the truck. I used to have to do it in between, emergency coordinators before because the assistant county administrator has other duties as assigned. I don't have an assistant county administrator to pass it off on. Darlene is doing the numbers, and I've asked her to work with Jeremy on, because the health department sends in the numbers for the COVID update. Those go into dispatch so they can update their call center so they know which locations. It's confidential information, I don't know, but they know whether they're sending someone into a COVID situation or things like that. But she is putting the numbers together on that. I've asked her to work with Jeremy on showing him that information so she can forward it to Jeremy and he can assist with doing it. But if there's any type of a calls or whatever, we would go out on any hazmat situation, make certain the state hazmat crew is caught up. Once we have an assistant county administrator next week, he has been a certified firefighter before, and he can assist us with this situation until we get a emergency management.
Are we having fire and rescue on the 20, whatever?
Fire rescue Monday. When is it?
Let's talk about it and see. I'd love to wait till we have a new EM1 coordinator if we could.
Yeah, I'd like that too.
Does anybody else have anything?
Thank you.
Martha? Ready to go home? We're adjourned.